Parshat, Metzora, chapter 14. Then Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, This is the Torah of the one with Za'arat in the day of his cleansing. He shall be brought to the Kohen, and the Kohen is to go to the outside of the camp. The Kohen is to examine him, and behold, if the mark of Za'arat is healed in one with Za'arat, then the Kohen is to command that 2 clean living birds, cedar wood, scarlet, and hyssop, be brought for the one being cleansed. The Kohen shall command them to kill one of the birds in a clay pot over living water. As for the living bird, he is to take it, the cedar wood, the scarlet, and the hyssop, and dip them with the living bird into the blood of the bird that was killed over the living water. He is to sprinkle on the one being cleansed from his Za'arat 7 times and pronounce him clean. Then release the living bird over the open field. The one to be cleansed must wash his clothes, shave off all his hair, and bathe himself in water. Then he shall become clean. After that he may come into the camp, but it is to dwell outside his tent for 7 days. Then on the 7th day he is to shave all his hair from his head, his beard, his eyebrows. He must shave off all his hair. He is to wash his clothes and bathe his body in water. Then he will be clean. On the 8th day he is to take 2 male lambs without blemish, a 1-year-old ewe lamb without blemish, 3/10 of a pint of fine flour as a grain offering mingled with an oil, and a pint of oil. The Kohen who cleanses him is to set the man who to be cleansed along with those items before Adonai at the entrance of the tent of meeting. The Kohen shall then take one of the male lambs and offer it for a trespass offering, with the pint of oil, and wave them as a wave offering before Adonai. Then he is to slaughter the male lamb in the place where they slaughter the sin offering and the burnt offering in the sanctuary area. For the sin offering, like the trespass offering, belongs to the Kohen. It is most holy. Then the Kohen is to take some of the blood of the trespass offering and dab it on the tip of the right ear of the one being cleansed, on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. The Kohen shall then take some of the pint of oil and pour it into the palm of his own left hand. He is to dip his right finger in the oil that is in his left hand and sprinkle some of the oil with his finger 7 times before Adonai. Then the Kohen shall dab some of the rest of the oil that is in his hand on the tip of the right ear of the one being cleansed, on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot, on top of the blood of the trespass offering. From what remains of the oil that is in his hand, the Kohen is to dab on the head of the one being cleansed. In this way, the Kohen will make atonement for him before Adonai. The Kohen shall offer the sin offering and make atonement for the one being cleansed because of his uncleanness. Afterward, he is to slaughter the burnt offering. Then the Kohen is to present the burnt offering along with the grain offering on the altar. So the Kohen shall make atonement for him, and he will be clean. If he is poor and cannot afford so much, then he is to take 1 male lamb for a trespass offering to be waved, to make atonement for him, plus 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour mingled with oil for a grain offering, a pint of oil, 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, such as he is able to afford. One shall be a sin offering, and the other a burnt offering. On the 8th day he is to bring them to the Kohen for his cleansing, at the entrance of the tent of meeting before Adonai. The Kohen is to take the lamb of the trespass offering and the pint of oil and wave them for a wave offering before Adonai. He is to slaughter the lamb of the trespass offering. The Kohen is to take some of the blood of the trespass offering and dab it on the tip of the right ear of the one being cleansed, on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. The Kohen shall then pour some of the oil into the palm of his own left hand. He is to sprinkle it with his right finger, some of the oil that is left in his left hand 7 times before Adonai. Then the Kohen is to dab some of the oil that is in his hand on the tip of the right ear of the one being cleansed, on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot, on top of the place of the blood of the trespass offering. The rest of the oil that is in his hand the Kohen is to dab on the head of the one being cleansed, to make atonement for him before Adonai. He is to offer 1 of the turtle doves or the young pigeons from what his hand can afford. the one for a sin offering, the other for a burnt offering, with the grain offering. The Kohen shall make atonement for him, being cleansed before Adonai. This is the Torah for one who has the mark of Zaharat, who is not able to afford the sacrifice for his cleansing. Adonai spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, Suppose you have come into the land of Canaan, which I give you for a possession, and I put a mark of Zaharat in a house in the land you possess. Then the one who owns the house shall come and tell the Kohen, saying, Something like a mark has appeared in my house. The Kohen is to order the house emptied before he goes in to examine the mark, so that nothing in the house might be made unclean. Then afterward the Kohen is to enter to inspect the house. He is to examine the mark, and behold, if the mark is in the walls of the house with yellow hollow streaks, greenish or reddish, and appears deeper than the wall, then the Kohen is to go out of the house to the door and close up the house for 7 days. Then the Kohen is to come again on the 7th day, and behold, if the mark has spread in the walls of the house, then the Kohen is to command that they take out the stones which are marked and throw them into an unclean place outside the city. He shall also have the inside of the house scraped all throughout, and they are to dump the mortar that they scraped off outside of the city into an unclean place. They may then take other stones and put them in the place of those stones. Likewise, he can take other mortar and plaster the house. But suppose the contamination returns, breaking out in the house, after he has pulled out the stones, and after he has scraped the house, and it has been replastered. Then the Kohen is to go examine, and behold, if the plague is spread within the house, it is a destructive mildew inside. It is unclean. He is to break down the house, its stones, its timber, along with all the house's mortar, and carry them out of the city into an unclean place. Moreover, whoever goes into the house while it is shut up will be unclean until the evening. The one who lies down in the house must wash his clothes, and he who eats in the house must wash his clothes too. But if the Kohen comes in, inspects it, and behold, the plague is not spread within the house after it was replastered, then he shall pronounce the house clean, because the contamination is healed. In order to cleanse the house, he is to take 2 birds, cedar wood, scarlet, and hyssop. He is to kill one of the birds in a clay pot over living water. Then he is to take the cedar wood, the hyssop, and scarlet, and the living bird, and dip them into the blood of the slain bird, as well as the living water, and sprinkle the house 7 times. He shall cleanse the house with the blood of the bird, with the living water, with the living bird, the cedar wood, the hyssop, and the scarlet. But he is to let the living bird go out of the city into the open field. So he is to make atonement for the house, and it will be clean. This is the Torah for any mark of Zaharat, even for a scab, or the Zaharat in a garment, or for a house, or for a swelling, a scab, or a bright spot, to teach when it is unclean and when it is clean. This is the Torah of Zaharat. Chapter 15. Adonai spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, Speak to Bnei Israel and tell them, when any man has a fluid discharge from his body, because of his discharge he is unclean. This is to be his uncleanness in his discharge. Whether his body flows with his discharge or his body obstructs his discharge, it is uncleanness. Every bed on which he who has a discharge lies will become unclean. Everything he sits on will be unclean. Whoever touches his bed is to wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. Whoever sits on anything on which the man who has a discharge sat is to wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. Whoever touches the body of the one who has a discharge is to wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. Or if the one who has a discharge spits on someone who is clean, then he also is to wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. Any saddle the one who has the discharge rides will be unclean. Whoever touches anything that was under him will be unclean until the evening. Whoever carries them is to wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. Also, anyone the person with the discharge touches without rinsing his hands in water shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the evening. A clay pot that one with the discharge touches shall be broken, and every wooden vessel shall be rinsed in water. When the one who has the fluid discharge is cleansed of his issue, then he is to count for himself 7 days for his purification and wash his clothes. Then he is to bathe his body in running water, and he will be clean. On the 8th day he is to take 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons and come before Adonai at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and give them to the Cohen. The Cohen is to offer them, one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. So the Cohen shall make atonement for him before Adonai for his fluid discharge. If any man has an emission of semen, then he is to bathe his whole body in water and be unclean until the evening. Every garment and all leather with semen on it are to be washed with water, and will be unclean until the evening. If a man lies with a woman and there is an emission of semen, they shall both bathe themselves in water, and be unclean until the evening. If a woman has a discharge, and her discharge from her body is blood, she shall be in her niddah 7 days, and whoever touches her will be unclean until the evening. Everything that she lies on in her niddah will become unclean. Also everything that she sits on will become unclean. Whoever touches her bed is to wash his clothes, bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the evening. Whoever touches anything that she sits on is to wash his clothes and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the evening. If it is on the bed or on anything where she sits, when he touches it, he will be unclean until the evening. If any man lies with her, so that her niddah gets upon him, he will be unclean for 7 days, and every bed where he lies will be unclean. Now if a woman has a discharge of her blood for many days, not during her niddah, or if she has a discharge beyond the time of her niddah, all the days of her discharge of her uncleanness shall be as the days of her niddah, she is unclean. Every bed where she lies, all the days of her discharge, will be like her bed during her niddah, and everything she sets on will become unclean like the uncleanness of her niddah. Whoever touches these things will become unclean and is to wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the evening. But if she is cleansed of her discharge, then she is to count off 7 days for herself, and after that she will be clean. On the 8th day she is to take 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, and bring them to the Cohen at the entrance of the tent of meeting. The Cohen is to offer the one for a sin offering, the other for a burnt offering. So the Cohen will make atonement for her before Adonai for the uncleanness of her discharge. So you are to keep Bnei Israel separate from their uncleanness, so they will not die in their uncleanness by defiling my tabernacle that is in their midst. This is the Torah for one who has a discharge, or for one who has an emission of semen, which causes him to become unclean, as well as for her who has her period of niddah, and for the man or woman who has a discharge, or the one who lies with her who is unclean.